Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and this is the Four Horsemen November build. And we have this 52 5-window Chevy pickup, and the theme is Wastelands, Mad Max, post-apocalyptic style. And each one of us will be tackling our own version as well as all others that are participating. And hopefully this one comes out as good as I think it will in my mind. So, as always, if you guys like what you see, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to get notified anytime I upload a new video. So obviously I took it apart, and this one I just got done doing not too long ago, a pickup truck, kind of a post-apocalyptic style. So my planning wasn't all that great because I did them too close to each other. But I put it in the citrus strip after taking it apart, and then I'm going to prime it with some Tamiya gray primer. Now, neither of those two steps are necessary, especially with a post-apocalyptic build. But for me, it kind of gave me a blank canvas to work with. You can certainly do a lot with the original paint, especially being somewhat matte that it was. Here I'm just trying to go through every time I take apart a car to build or do whatever, I keep all the wheels. Whether I'm going to use them or not, you never know. And technically what I'm doing right now is just going through and trying to find something that I think is going to look halfway decent. And I got a mixed match of Hot Wheels, M2, match, but you name it, they're in there. So, the odds of finding one is pretty good. So once I've established what I'm going to use for a wheel, which is, I believe it's a Hot Wheels. I'm not even sure what it's off of, to be honest with you, because again, it was in my stack. The axle length was too wide, so I have to make axle tubes, which I'm using 1/16th K&S brass tubing. I pretty much put it across, mark what I want for an axle width, and then I'll cut it with my cutoff wheel. I'll kind of whore out the hole a little bit with my pick after cleaning off the edges. And the biggest thing is obviously making sure that your axles are short enough that you can put one on each side, and it works out pretty well, and one side doesn't push out the other side, so on and so forth. I say that on every video. Here you can actually see it was too long, so I had to trim it again. So I took the base because it had that horrible tan color, and I painted it with the Chaos Black. So what I'm doing is I'm mounting the axles underneath the chassis. In order to do that, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of making a little bit of a groove with my cutoff wheel, and that gives me a little channel for me to set my axle tube in, because it's I think overall it might be 3/16. I'm not quite sure what never really measured the diameter, but it's bigger than obviously an axle. And mounting it underneath gave me a little bit more clearance for the bigger wheels without having to go crazy, and it gives it the right stance. So I will, if you watch any of my videos, I do tend on the post-apocalyptic stuff to mount things, the wheels, etc., underneath the chassis instead of trying to put them in the original frame mounting position. So with the body primed and then the bottom painted black, I'm looking for inspiration. I kind of let it sit for a few days, and I don't plan anything. I'm just looking for ideas. I found this roll cage that came off of, I believe it was a Ford off-road vehicle from Hot Wheels, and it looks kind of cool. It looks like I think at one point I was just playing around with some different painting techniques, and so it was in my scrap pile. So in order to get it to fit, nothing really fits the way you want it to when you're mix matching stuff, so you have to do a little bit of trimming, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. The back of it was too wide as it kind of came down on an angle to be able to fit into the bed. So I'm just kind of trimming things down so that I can rest this roll cage over the top of the bed of this pickup truck. So I'm going from a Ford to a Chevy, a non-step side to a step side. So there was a few things I had to trim and cut, obviously. And then I'll clean it up with a cutoff wheel and so on and so forth. But, I didn't have really any major inspiration when it came to this. I didn't want to go crazy. The thing with post-apocalyptic is what's great is you can go completely nuts or you can kind of tone it back. I kind of went nuts on the last one. So this one, I'm just trying to keep it somewhat contained because it turns into a rabbit hole. You start adding crap. Next thing you know, you're just putting stuff and gluing stuff on top of stuff. And I've done that. You can go back in any one of I have a wastelands or post-apocalyptic playlist. You can go back and look at all of them. I have quite a few that I tend to go, I wouldn't say go overboard, but I certainly throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. So here you can see me trimming this. And what's great about these kind of builds is there's no wrong way to do it. So if you'll go and look at my video, then you go and look at the other other members of the Four Horsemen plus all those participating. Everybody's got their own vision. And none of them are bad or good or wrong or right. There's just your imagination's the only limit, which is awesome. So once you get, the hardest part is putting the first piece on. Once you start putting stuff on, the vision comes and you just start adding stuff and things look good or don't look good at that point. So it makes it easier to make more decisions as you go further into the build. And I know I'm rambling about this, but I'm all hopped up on caffeine and pills. But so I get this paint sent to me from Mr. Brian Jennings, who had sent me a package. Excuse me. And I wanted to give it a try. So it's got some pretty cool paints in it. I've been kind of mixing up what I use between the Citadel and the Vallejo. So they had like this grayish tone. It's got a little bit of brown tint to it, but it's really, really cool. So I want to make a rear bumper. So I get this solid styrene. And what I'm going to do is I kind of measure it out, kind of half-ass measure it out, because you know me, I don't measure anything really. So I kind of cut it where I think it roughly should be. And what I'm trying to do is kind of beef up the rear bumper. So I'm going to cut off the edges because it kind of wraps around the original chrome bumper that would be on it. So I'm just going to kind of replace it that way. Then I need an exhaust, and I have this bone shaker interior piece that I already started hacking things off of. So I want the exhaust tips off of this to put underneath the truck. So again, never throw anything away. You never know when you're going to use it. This is a prime example. I kept the stacks. I may use the stacks down the road. I may use the seats. Right now, at this point, I wanted the exhaust tips, because I wanted them underneath, kind of sticking out just like that. And again, there's no right or wrong way. I just kind of put it in there to where I thought it looked good. And I did play around with some other exhaust stuff off camera. And this really didn't have the look I was going for. This seemed to work out pretty good. One for each side. I thought it came out pretty decent. Then I'm like, hey, this thing's got a gas tank on it. So most of these trucks, I had a 53 3-window. And the seat behind the seat is the gas tank. So why not add another gas tank? If you're in the post-apocalyptic world, gas is going to be a commodity. Let's add 2. So go back to my bone shaker, and I'm just kind of slicing the. I didn't want it the whole thickness, so I'm just slicing a section out so I can grab the gas tank, and then the battery, and then the fuel lines, and that's going to go in the bed of the truck. And it works out that it's the exact same width. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But this time I get lucky. But it fits in there perfect. And it's just, again, personal preference. I thought it would be kind of cool. The only thing is that it usually sits at the back of the bone shaker, so you don't see this big gaping hole. So I'm going to use a piece of styrene because I'm going to have mine sitting forward a little bit, because it has to clear the roll cage I'm putting in and be accessible to put gas in it. So I'm just going to make a little small rectangular piece. It's going to fill in that hole that you'll potentially see. And it only took a couple minutes, so it's worth doing. Sometimes it's the little details that, if you don't do it, And every time I skip a step, trust me, everybody in the YouTubes bust my balls about it. So this time I'm trying to not skip a step. And this works out really well. Just cut a little section. It's going to get glued right in there. When it gets painted, you're not going to notice it anyways. So after looking at it, it still seemed kind of plain. So I'm like, I need a weapon. So I went to my old faithful Warhammer 40K Orc Boys kit, and I got a bunch of orc arms that I never did anything with. So they all are holding some form of a weapon. So what I'm going to do is kind of modify one. And these kits are great. I think I want to say 20 bucks, maybe 25 bucks a while ago. And it's just filled with a bunch of good stuff to use. And that's kind of what I'm doing when I do these builds. So like first off is I'm going to cut the arm off. And then I'm going to cut the part where the hand holds the actual gun. And then it ended up with a perfect size to mount on the hood, which I'm going to do later. But I decided I needed some sort of something in the front to kind of set it off a little bit. So I got this piece of brass, and I'm not sure where I got it. It's K&S. It's really thin, 1/32 or some crazy number, but it's easy to work with. As far as making a slight curvature or anything else, you could do it with styrene, but for me, I felt this was much easier to work with. And now I can make like a little lip real easy without having to have this glued area. So I'm just pretty much cutting a rectangular piece, and then I'm making a lip, which you'll see later. And you can kind of just, it's really easy to bend and malleable, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And here I kind of, because the nose of the truck is slightly curved, it allows me to just put a little bit of a curvature in there by hand, and it works out perfectly. Just like that. Right there, I'm just trying to get the right height so it's not above the height of the headlights. So to make it easier to mount, instead of just trying to mount it to the front bumper that was there originally in the casting, I'm going to do the same thing I did in the back, and I'm going to make a little piece to go underneath so I have more surface area to glue that the guard on. So that's essentially what I'm doing right there. And again, this is just one of those things that you just keep playing around until you get something that works. And once you're happy, then you just start gluing and painting and just having fun. So here, I got all the individual pieces. That's the gas tank. That's the gun. And I just break out my Citadel. Well, it's a combination of Citadel and the Vallejo paints. And just start doing things that work and have fun with it. The truck, I didn't show it because I kind of did it by accident and I left it that way. Once I put the wheels on and the exhaust, I had all the brass pieces underneath. So I used my Citadel Chaos Black and I painted it. And it oversprayed the black onto the primer. And I thought it looked so cool. I kind of misted it on top as well. And it offset the primer, so I left it that way. And here I'm just adding rust and texture and color and just having fun with it. I mean, that's essentially what it is. There's 8,000 ways to weather. I do it in every video. I'm not explaining it in this one. Here I'm just adding some dust. Just have fun. That's the whole point of this. And to sit there, and I see a lot of groups where people kind of make fun of other people for their customs. You guys are douchebags. Anyways, next month, December 2020, the casting is a 32 Ford. The theme is Rat Rod. All videos, if you're going to participate in the 4 Horseman build, are due on December 31st. Not the 30th, December 31st. We all post our videos at 6 a.m. So, if you remember, this is kind of the Butterfinger car that I started with, the truck, plain Jane. This is what I came up with. I did a little bit of dry brush highlighting with some silver to kind of give a little bit of a sheen to it and a little bit of a worn metal look over all the stuff that I did do, which is a mix of Agrath Earthshade Wash, Typhus Corrosion, Rise of Rust, and just the regular paints. Overall, I think it came out really good. I'm happy with this one. I had a blast building it. And when you do enough custom work, sometimes just doing these post-apocalyptic builds, it's just fun and it's relaxing. There's no pressure. And that's what happened. So make sure you check out everybody else's builds. The links will be in the description down below. Thank you, and I will catch you on the next one.